everyone. Welcome to the Ladies of Sosa podcast. My name is Sarah.
And my name is Christine.
And we're back with another episode. First and foremost, we want to give a big shout out to our audience, everyone who has supported, left a comment, interacted with us. I think you're going to enjoy this topic because it's been very much requested by people in the Black diaspora, and the topic is going to be Pan-Africanism. So before we even, do you want to introduce the topic before we introduce the panel?
So I first want to read the definition of Pan-Africanism because that's basically what the whole conversation is based on. And the topic today is Pan-Africanism realistic? So that is what our panel is just going to be dissecting. So we want to read the definition so we make sure that they know the actual definition and you guys know as well, and then we'll go ahead and get into it. So Pan-Africanism is the attempt to create a sense of brotherhood and collaboration among all people of African descent, whether they've lived inside or outside of the continent. So we want to, dive into, is that realistic? Is that something that we can aspire to? Or is it a pipe dream and everyone should focus on their own individual subsector?
And then even what you said earlier to me today, not all Black people are monolithic.
Mm-hmm.
I've always assumed that everybody that was Black was Pan-Africanist. So just diving into that. But first, we want to introduce our lovely panel. So let's start with Chris.
How y'all doing?
So Chris, we want you to introduce yourself. First of all, where are you from within the diaspora? And then what do you do for occupation? Just go ahead and introduce yourself.
So Christopher, beautiful cerebral. You can follow me out there. Long Cave HK as well. 30 years old. I'm an electrical engineer. What I do, I see a lot of different things in that space, being the only Black person there. My family from St. Croix, where we got our citizenship, but they're really from St. Vincent, Antigua. And then I'm born and raised in Jersey, summers in St. Croix. Spent a lot of time there. That's what I call homeland. But obviously Africa, I feel like we all came from, as everybody should know. So yeah.
Love it. All right.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next is Miss Janet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janet Akorkin. I am from Uganda. My parents both are from Uganda. I grew up here in America. I was born in Jersey City. By trade, I am a social worker, but I'm also a content creator, and I'll give you guys my details later on in the show. But I'm happy to be here and happy to discuss this topic today.
Yes, and I want to interject. Jen is actually my best friend since 4 years old, pre-K. We went to elementary school together, middle school, high school, college, U of H, everything. So yeah, that's my twin. We're so thankful that she's here, and we say that she's South Sudanese by association because growing up, I brought her. She is.
She's from the Choli tribe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which there's some that are in Uganda, some in South Sudan. I'm not sure
because we're Nilotic people, so we moved around. And so she just so happens to be a Choli.
On the border.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Just someone
They are our people.
The British put a line between you guys are this, but they're
exactly.
They're our people.
So just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Love y'all. Happy
love
to be
you.
here.
Yes. So next we have Tariq. A little controversial. A lot of people had, different perspectives on what you were saying, but we love that you were able to stand on your viewpoint and articulate how you felt. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Tariq. I born in Juba, Sudan. I live in Dallas. My home is Jacksonville, though. I'm raised in Jacksonville, Florida, so Duval County stand up. I do Power BI, Microsoft engineering, so I'm a developer, and I'm just happy to be back and tell everybody what's on my mind.
Run it.
Love it. All right, and then I have my friend Fatima, who she just so happened to fly in to Dallas a few days ago. Was it yesterday or today or the day before yesterday? I'm sorry.
I flew in, I think Monday. I was here for a work trip.
Okay.
And then I was like, my favorite people are in Dallas. I'm gonna stay.
Yes, and she's very well. She's from Kansas City, so there's a lot of South Sudanese in the Kansas City area. So she's well connected with that community, and she's Somali. So I was like, nah, I got to bring my sis on this conversation. So she was down. So I want to let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am Fatima. I was actually born in Mombasa, Kenya, but I have a very complex history with my tribe, which will be cool to talk about later. But so I'm Barawa, and um, I was born in Mombasa, but I grew up in Kansas City, basically. And yeah, so I feel very connected to this topic just because, you know, I've gotten to at least travel back home and travel to other places that my family moved to. And so it's like a cool experience. It was cool to experience that. And so I definitely feel connected to the Pan-Africanism topic. I'm in healthcare IT, and so I work with healthcare systems. And yeah.
All right. I love it. Thank you for coming. I love
Thank
you. Appreciate it. All right. And Willie, you have been in you've been in a couple
Yeah.
of our
2
episodes.
episodes,
Yeah, so far. And we'll let you introduce yourself. And
Really fast.
are you happy to be back? Number one.
No, yeah, I'm excited to be back. I had fun last time. Thank you guys for having me again. My name is Willie. I'm South Sudanese, Eastern Equatoria, part of the Didinga tribe, beautiful people up in the Didinga Hills. And I'm excited to be back. So
And what do
Love
you
it.
do, Willie, professionally?
I'm a treasury analyst. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I work with businesses. So let me help them with their money movement.
Love it.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
And you know it is Emmanuel
Yeah,
Ngoy.
this is Emmanuel Ngoy. Artist name Indigo X, aka one half of the new Sudanese supergroup Nilotic Noise. Hopefully, y'all be able to hear some new music later this year. And yeah, I'm the only one that's professional. That's not college educated. Let's put it like that. So.
What do you mean that? What by that?
What do you mean? I mean, everybody over here is a professional, and it's so beautiful to see black excellence. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I love the black
that.
excellence.
There's
you know what I'm
room, and that's the
You
thing.
are
Would we need?
professional. You're-
Yeah.
As a comedian,
saying? I'm a professional asshole. Like this. That's right.
All right. So we're gonna get into the topic, but first and foremost, let's define what Pan-Africanism is. Did you already do that?
Yes, I did. But to get back into it,
Yes.
I guess we're here in the diaspora, so a lot of us have roots to somewhere other than the United States. Obviously, we're based in Dallas, Texas right now. So to get into the topic, we want to dissect, is Pan-Africanism a realistic thing? Because we had a comment on one of our videos and someone was saying, okay, Pan-Africanism, great. Would South Sudanese back home in South Sudan welcome Black people from the diaspora into the country with open arms and allow them opportunities to get into business and to advance? And would they be open to that realistically? And that gave pause to me and Sarah,
Yeah.
because we're in the diaspora, and I'm like, hold up, I don't know, because to be honest, whenever someone comes into someone's homeland in a large amount, obviously there's going to be some pushback.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
back in Africa, is Pan-Africanism even a priority? Because I feel like for us in diaspora, we care more about it because we see the value in what it could do if we all were to unite. And then, we have African, a whole continent, but are Africans on the continent even worried about that? Because they're worried about their own country, their own issues, So.
And each country has such diverse cultures, economic situations. And so is it even realistic for all Black people all over the world to unite and create this one, union?
Like Dr. Umar, or is it just a pipe dream?
Yeah.
Well,
And
we-
he's blowing smoke.
No, Dr. Umar. No, Dr.
Yeah.
Umar.
I mean, he's like the Pan-Africanism,
Like,
I'm with Dr. Umar.
spokesperson. So
I'm with
Yeah.
Dr.
Okay, so
Yeah,
let's start with
strong
that.
view.
Why do you not
Well-
resonate with Dr. Umar?
Well, number one, before I talk about Dr. Umar, let me say, we already let other countries come in. We already let the Westerners, and we already let the Asians, and we already let the South and North Asians in our country anyway. So why would we be mad at somebody that look like us doing the same thing?
Mhm.
That's one thing I always say, that we should prioritize our people who are already displaced, just like they do in any other country. So that's the number one thing. But outside of that, Dr. Umar, I respect Dr. Umar. I think he's really doing what he needs to do. But there's certain aspects of him that I would choose not to want that to be the perfect opinion of Pan-Africanism, because I think Pan-Africanism needs to include all of the people,
but
even the people
Emmanuel,
that we don't agree
with tribalism being so prevalent on the African continent and within our country, we have a lot of war going on within just South Sudan, even after we split with tribalism. Do you think that another whole group or other people coming in, obviously we're tribalistic within ourselves, would that be realistic if we're like, okay, Pan-Africanism, all Black people flood the continent, invest? Do you think they would be like, oh, great, we're glad that you guys are here finally? Or do you think they would be like, hold up, like, y'all are not from here, y'all are American? Because they other us, obviously, but I just want to, because you're South Sudanese, from a South Sudanese perspective.
They wouldn't touch an American because they have the whole U.S. government behind them. It's the same way why we don't touch.
But would they
Asians,
be
the Indians, and
open
all
or
that.
would they be prejudiced, is my question.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to be more open to them because they look like us. But obviously, we're going to be like, okay, who's this American black American? Obviously, it's going to be rough at the beginning. But once they start speaking your language, what can you say after that?
Yeah, and I think that's the go ahead, Willie.
Like I think all problems are local. So for you to tell someone in South Sudan who has their own struggles and like of feeding themselves or like finding shelter, being like a peaceful environment, that you're bringing your Pan-Africanism to them, you can understand why they would be like, I don't want to hear about that, you know? Like they've never seen a white person, they've never experienced, they don't know what racism is. They just want to be able to live a peaceful life and, you know? So when you're coming from America and you're like, oh, hey, I have this great idea, you know, they're just like, get out of here. I'm trying to feed my family right now. That's my focus. Like I don't have time
to think about
the other issues that we as Black people in the diaspora, like our problems are not their problems. Like they can't relate to that, so they don't understand how like the Pan-Africanism like itself, it's not an issue that they're
worried about.
Yeah, that they would think about, you know. So it makes sense why they would be hesitant to be like, oh, okay, yeah, welcome. Like, you know.
You don't think our problem's the same everywhere though? I mean, in terms of just poverty, you know, being looked down, not having the economic wealth as everybody else, I feel like that's a common thing in all Black societies, regardless if you're from the States or from Africa, the original, place. So it's like, when it comes down to the more common, folk, saying, why are you coming here? I feel like it's the same way everywhere in the States. But I feel like that's when it comes down to like talking about corporations, the government. They are the one that really care about who's coming in. That's what you talk about. You have China coming in. China come into every place, and they put money down, and it's all for their good, their common interest at the end of the day. And it's really not for the people that they even go to the land of, because I see it at St. Croix. You see it in Africa where they come in, they destroy the land, they make their money and they go out and dip. So it's like, I feel like that's the same issue we all are having. And when it comes down to, trying to reach the common people and say, like, how can we all really just team up and together and really put wealth into where we actually are from, I think that would be a different story. Because, you look at, out here in the States, I mean, like, every other culture but us is, is carpooling their interests together. They bring in all the, Jewish people, they put their money together. Indian people, they put their money together. You got Chinatown, Indian town, but you don't really see no Black town. And that's the thing that's what really bothers me for sure. So I think if there was just, it's more common people doing it, I think it'll be different, because people like big names, all the celebrities, I feel like they be doing that shit for Poppy show, so it's not even like they really care about the middle class, lower people, because we all got the same problem. There's Section 8, what we call Section 8 in the U.S. is just poor in other countries. They don't. That's just a government title. We're all suffering from, not having to pay our bills, not being able to make food for ourselves. So that's a common interest, I feel like. But
so I agree with you. I agree with you.
About,
go ahead.
Because you were talking about just economic struggles in general, right?
Right.
And I've always had this conversation with myself. So, for example, Lawal Deng comes to Sudan. He does this thing, and he's creating jobs for these people. That's all they need. Is if you can create a job and you can create something that can be safe for them and be consistent, would it be great? But then I also have this conflict with me where thinking to myself that, does capitalism help Pan-Africanism, and can capitalism work with Pan-Africanism?
Yeah, I mean, because we all need money. I mean, that's what we all bank off of. What's our economic, system? Either you want to go to technology, you talk about Bitcoin, or you talk about the regular dollar in whatever your country is. We all need money, because that's how we do our our transactions. We could even trade if we really want to. I mean, but in terms of, we don't see people, not seeing people trade, properties. they look for money. So if that's how we're going to have to do our transactions, so we have to do. So I think it's important just in general that we find ways to bring our money together. Because like I said, like we went to the casino the other day. All the Asians are there, at one, casino table, putting their money together to win the whole table for they all go back on the bus and split that money. It's the same thing. You go out, I was the other day, going to the beauty salon store. They got images of black people on the front, but it's all Asian people in the back of the register. So it's like, if we could put our money together, do what we need to do for ourselves, that would be good anywhere.
I just want to interject because you brought up a great point about like trading with each other and being collaborative. So within the continent itself, we have the African Free Trade Agreement, but it's not really being enforced. And what that basically was going to do was to make it possible for us to trade like country to country, because right now we're not trading with each other. So you have to go outside and import stuff in versus being able to, like, I'm from South Sudan, Uganda. Let's export goods. Like, let's work with each other. So how are we, like, when you talk about Pan-Africanism, Africa itself is not collaborating and working together, like, and it's by design, but when are we going to push back and say, hey, like, Africans first, we're going to work with each other. We're going to trade with Ethiopia, which is right there that we border with, versus exporting stuff from outside of the continent. So that is like my next question is like, okay, is it realistic? Because within the continent itself, we are still separating ourselves. Obviously, whenever we were colonized and stuff, we were broken up into different countries, but it has to start at home for us to be like, okay, we're going to go invest in Africa. Right now, if we go invest in Africa, it's very hard to move within African countries. Like, they make it difficult for you to, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Where does it start? Go ahead.
I want to say, I feel like that's where the diaspora gets the seat at the table, because we in America, we have friends from every single country, and so that's not an unfamiliar concept to us. And something that I learned recently, one of my cousins told me, they were like, if you, like, back home, if you don't know somebody, the chances of you getting, because it's like, I'm going to help my people first, right? Which is great. But then it creates a division, because if you don't know somebody if you don't know the person who's building the hotel, the chances of you getting a job in that hotel are very low, because you don't know, you're not related to them, you're not from the same tribe as them. And so I think that's where the diaspora, and again, I feel like when we think I think with the whole Pan-Africanism, in extremes, nothing works in extremes. If you take a fish and you move them from one water to another that's at a different temperature, they're not going to survive, because it's shock therapy. Yeah. So I think if everybody gets a seat at the table, as opposed to we come in and we take over because we know what's best. We don't know what's best. There's things at different levels that we won't understand. We may be able to get the bigger picture of we need to work together with all of the countries, but then the people locally will be able to really identify those things that maybe we can use in the big picture. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so you're Somali. So when we look at Minnesota, where you guys have been able to build a community like a Chinatown, not the Chinese only, like the Hispanics, they have like their little Mexico. They stick together. Indian people
even in Dallas
well.
is like a little Ethiopia.
Yeah, a little Ethiopia. But Somalis have said, okay, all Somalis in the United States, we are going to make Minnesota. I know when I went to Rochester earlier this year, it was like being in Somalia. It was crazy because the the Uber drivers, the restaurant, everything, like, you guys all decided to go back home, start businesses, open stuff up. So we want to emulate you as South Sudanese, but if you could speak to like your community and your ability to create that in diaspora.
Again, I think that goes back to what he mentioned, where it was like, there's a beauty shop and it's for Black people, but Asians are running it. And so I think they were able to identify. One of the things that, at least from when I was growing up, like, we didn't know, before we knew Sam's Club and Costco, because, that's kind of like a recent thing. But before that, it would be like you had a connecting person. You had somebody who connected the community, the diaspora community, for me, the Somali community, to Sam's Club. Nobody had a Sam's Club membership card when I was young. The owner of that shop had it, and that's where we would shop. But it's just having that support, like saying, you know what, I'm going to support the people that I want to see succeed, the people that I want to see. And I think that's what started it. Like, who do you want to see win? And so you want to see your kids win, and you want to see yourself win. And so it's kind of recognizing the only way we can win is if we support somebody who looks like us.
Right.
Back home, if you don't know somebody, the chances of you getting, because it's like, I'm going to help my people first, right? Which is great. But then it creates a division, because if you don't know somebody if you don't know the person who's building the hotel, the chances of you getting a job in that hotel are very low, because you don't know, you're not related to them, you're not from the same tribe as them. And so I think that's where the diaspora, and again, I feel like when we think I think with the whole Pan-Africanism, in extremes, nothing works in extremes. If you take a fish and you move them from one water to another that's at a different temperature, they're not going to survive, because it's shock therapy.
Yeah.
So I think if everybody gets a seat at the table, as opposed to we come in and we take over because we know what's best. We don't know what's best. There's things at different levels that we won't understand. We may be able to get the bigger picture of we need to work together with all of the countries, but then the people locally will be able to really identify those things that maybe we can use in the big picture. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when it comes to Pan-Africanism, again, like I have family members who were able to go back home, build, create jobs essentially for people back there. But to be honest, the people who got the jobs were our family, because it was like, why are we going to keep sending them money? We can just give them a job to do and provide the money that way.
Yeah.
But again, if you're not related to us, I'm gonna pick my cousin, or I'm gonna pick a family, or not even a family member. I'm gonna pick somebody from my tribe before I pick somebody that I have no idea. I like, because back home, your tribe is kind of like your reference. That's your resume, you know? And so, but leading back into the whole Pan-Africanism being realistic, I think if we try and remember that you don't have to operate in extremes for it to be successful, like you can't just bombard on them and you give everybody who needs a seat, we're able to get that bigger picture of this is what we need to really be successful, but then have somebody at the table who says, this is what I need, and this is what I need.
So I think that's a great question. Is like, how do we even start? Because I think that's the complicated part about Pan-Africanism is like, even though we're all Black, we still have different cultures, different languages, different traditions, different mindsets, ideologies. So how do we come together and say, like, let's make that secondary and have a united front in a different way? Like maybe it's economics. Like let's put our money together.
Has to be economics.
Yeah, it probably has to be economics because we have different cultures. And I think this is a good time to bring up the foundational Black Americans, because that was another aspect of people who commented on our recent video about it was like South Sudanese adopting African American culture. And we had some people who are a part of a group called the Foundational Black Americans. Honestly, I did not even know, I was not even aware that most Black people, well, not all Black people were not Pan-Africanists. I always assumed that Black people were all Pan-Africanism because I thought that was like the most beneficial mindset for everyone to have. But there's groups of people who believe that they don't identify with Africa or Africans,
or being called
Africans. They identify more with being Black Americans. Like I think I looked up the history, and they believe that their history started before slavery, before them coming to America through slavery, but they came in the early 1500s through a colonizer from Spain, or Spanish colonizer, and they came to like Georgia and South Carolina, and that's where they settled, and then they brought Black people with them.
Well, there's also some that say that they're indigenous to this continent as well.
There you go.
I've been seeing that as well. Some that say that they are the original Indians, or so there's a lot of
exactly. So they think that their history origin started before slavery, and then they fought off the Spanish conquest, and then they settled here in like the Georgia, South Carolina area, and they started.
They're foundational, so they feel like their accomplishments, what they've invested into this country through slavery, helping build the country as well. They feel like we as Africans sometimes say, you guys have no culture, but they're pushing back and saying, yes, we do have a culture. Like, we are foundational Black Americans. Our ancestors, some say came from slavery, and some say that they were indigenous. I feel like there's a lot of like dissonance. It's like not everyone is on the same page with that, but they just want their respect and accolades. And they feel like us in the diaspora, whether it be Africans, West Indians, Caribbeans, or anybody else, we don't give them that respect that they deserve, as like everyone's like, I guess, beating down on African Americans
Or Black Americans. They call
yeah.
themselves Black
but
Americans.
that is true though, because
Yeah.
there are many Black people, African Americans that are in America that they are Americans because at the end of the day they are Americans. You don't go to England and you meet a African British. They're British.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times it's that in America there's this disconnect where you're Mexican American, you're African American, you're Asian American, but then if you're white, you're just American. And I feel like no, if you're able to trace your lineage all the way to 1700, are you not American? You are American at that point.
And a
But
lot of them
the
have
whole
intermarried, had kids, like,
Yeah.
you know, so.
But I feel like there's very historical facts of Africans actually coming to America before the Europeans. The Europeans were not the first people in America. There's South
Yeah.
America used to connect to Africa. There's a lot of
But they
stuff
feel
with that, so I don't wanna
excluded,
get-
basically. So when we talk about Pan-Africanism,
They
is
don't.
it going
They
to be
actually don't agree. They don't agree with Pan Africanism.
and they shouldn't.
But
I don't think
but
they.
it's like you
they
don't,
don't
like,
need to.
that history was erased from them. So even if you could trace, even if you could say, yeah, you're from Africa, from where?
Yeah.
You
But
know?
some of
But
it,
there's no
it's not
documentation.
everyone that pushes back. Yeah.
I think it's we as Black people everywhere in the world, we have our local problems, but we don't realize like there's like a connection on a bigger level of why we have these type of problems. And I agree with you, Chris, in terms of like if we as like Black people everywhere had a level of economic power, which comes with like military power, of course, they're interconnected. Like treatment of Black people anywhere would not be tolerated.
Mhm.
You know, like if we could be like, yo, like for example, like if some countries in Africa were powerful enough, they would send a message to like America with the George Floyd situation and be like, this isn't.
You can say,
Go ahead.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, that shit is not
I-
that shit is not acceptable. We're not gonna accept you guys just shooting Black people off the street, like and choking them, like it's like, you know, like we're gonna do something about it economically. Like, you know, we're not gonna trade with you, or we're gonna put sanction on you,
Exactly.
sanctions and stuff.
Ultimately,
You know?
It's not gonna
ultimately
happen. We put the
If we had
Japanese we
economic
put the
power.
Japanese in entrapment camp when the Japanese was the largest empire in Asia. So when people talk about the whole of Africa, they don't realize how big Africa is and how many countries there are. So when people are saying, well, if we had an African, a large African country that can tell us, okay, George Floyd did this, it's not going to happen, because at the end of the day, we're fighting our own tribalistic warfare to not even care about what people are coming on in the diaspora. So the whole part of African, the whole thing about it is that as far as connecting is making sure that we in Africa, they have to do better for themselves first. They have to disconnect their dependence on other resources, whether it's from Europe or now coming from China. Until they're able to do that, then we're able to come in there with our knowledge, because once you connect the whole thing with people, they become a disconnect. It's knowledge being transferred back to the continent. That's what it is. It's knowledge. Because how you can kind of get the whole economic structure happen is typically by trade, highway, currency, economic, etc. But
We need a trade
in Africa,
system.
there's, I don't know how many currencies there are. There are multiple currencies.
but wouldn't you say that's
West
our-
Africa, they're still using the francs. Even France don't use the francs, but we're still using the francs. The British pound is still being used in East Africa. So the first thing that needs to happen is like, okay, let's set up an interstate highway system, the way Eisenhower set up in America in the 50s. Let's set up a currency, or one currency for the continent. So now the trade is easier, because if you're making coffee in Ethiopia and you want to send it to Ghana to trade for chocolate, you got to trade it to Europe first before it comes to Ghana. So why not just trade directly? And I think that's what it is. A lot of people are thinking of like, okay, well, we can just move back there and they're just going to welcome us with open arms. That's not going to be the case, because at the end of the day, as humans, one of the first things that we hate is change.
Yep.
If I go to my house and the degree is changed by 1, I'm already pissed off. Like, what's going on? What happened? So we hate change. So what has to happen is that change has to come kind of slowly, but the changes has to happen. And if the people don't like it, then that's part of the change. They're not going to live forever.
Is
We
it-
just got to put the change
Is
there.
it change or comfort?
It's
I mean,
change.
Closer
'cause-
to your mic.
Because I feel like anybody's going to do anything that they feel comfortable doing. I mean, You gotta be comfortable in change.
You
People
can,
don't
though.
like it because it's dangerous.
You can't, though. Change is discomfort.
Because it's unaware.
When's
There's
the
no
last time? When's
certainty.
the last time you made change out of comfort?
I left Austin and came to Dallas. I left
Was
Jersey.
it out of comfort? Though?
No,
it was out of discomfort.
It's out of what I wanted.
But
It's
I can challenge that.
I'm
both by
comfortable in
saying-
Jersey. I've been in Jersey.
Change comes from discomfort.
Change is the constant. You have to embrace change.
But there's different levels of discomfort. So what I'm saying is it has to be regional. So for example, for most of us, right, we as Sudanese have interacted more with Somalis. We have interacted more with Ethiopians. We have interacted more with Kenyans because they're right next to our regions. If we start off by doing a sub-region thing where we're actually connecting and trading at that point, then we can eventually get bigger and bigger.
So
Pause.
break it up.
But that's
Pause.
but that's individualistic
But
interactions. Those are not governmental interactions.
But my thing
I feel like
is-
the mindset a lot of people have is like they see individualistic interactions. The
But that is
government
government.
of Sudan is not
Alright, go
talking to the
ahead,
government of
Fatima.
Somalia. There's no government in Somalia.
Wait,
They're talking
so-
to government
We have
of
East
Europe.
African-
But wait, what I'm
Wait, yeah,
saying
let
is,
her.
don't you think that is the role of that's where RC is,
Yeah.
that bigger picture, the role of
Yeah.
the diaspora to come in and say, look, we have the bigger, we can interact, like you guys can do this. Like they don't understand the highway system back home. We grew up here. We understand the
Right.
highway system. So it's our responsibility to be that voice and at that specific seat of the table.
Can I
Just
add?
yeah,
though?
go ahead,
I don't.
Janet.
So
I don't think.
Yeah,
before
go
we
ahead,
even
Janet.
move to economic, can we start with just the diaspora visiting Africa and understanding what their culture is and what they're
Yeah,
used
bring
to
it back to ABC,
before we
1, 2,
even
3.
get to trying to change things up and do all of that because of where we come from. I think starting from there, we can then have an understanding of what the change is and how to go about it, and then where we fit in that.
And how to navigate in those spaces, because you were saying earlier, when you go back home, you need to tap in with someone back home
Yeah.
because you don't know how to move around, how to
Yeah.
operate, how to get stuff started.
Right.
I think that's completely extremely important for sure. Don't they every December a lot of people go back home? The African-
Yeah,
Yeah,
the year
yeah.
of return
December
has
in
been
Ghana.
big the
Yeah,
last
year
2
to
years.
ret- the
Yeah,
year- the
December
month
in
of
Ghana.
Year of
return or
return.
whatever
Yeah.
the term is for y'all to go back home.
Mhm.
I mean, I would love to go back to Africa. I had never been, but I think that's important. I love traveling. The thing about traveling is that you get to go around and you get to be in someone else's world. And I'm not a person that just like to stay on the resort or stay on the property. I like to go in and take a bus out, or if I have friends out there, go out and explore, because it's nothing more opens your mind but seeing how someone lives in their community. And I think it comes down to what education they are told, what information they be told in general. Yeah, I talk about people don't like to check Black Americans, Mexican Americans, because white people are just white. They're just Americans. And my uncle's the same way. He's like, we fought, Christopher Columbus coming out here, so we ain't African Americans. We just, we just West Indies or whatever. So everybody just has their own strength to that, which is important. I just think, to me, it comes down to history and present. Like I'm big on, I care about my history as well. I don't always dive deep as I should, because I'm also in the present and living my life right now. When I go on these, when I apply for documents or when I ever do anything, I gotta check a box. The box I'm checking is Black, African American. I mean, I could check like West Indies, but sometimes I don't even want to, even make it I don't want to say not make it a big deal, but get so deep into it, because honestly, it's just like, let me just check this box and do what I gotta do in the present moment. Like, we all look the same in a sense that like we're all darker skinned. So when people look at us, it's just like they're a darker skinned person. Everybody wants to section it off, so that's cool. And you could say like, yeah, we was here originally, but when people look at you when you go outside the door, they look at you as a Black person.
Yeah,
might
Yes,
work.
that's a perfect.
Facts.
I just want to
Yeah. Exactly.
interject
Yeah.
because what you're saying is super important, and I think a point when we talk about this Pan-Africanism discussion is that the individualism. So, hey, I'm Caribbean, I'm from Uganda, I'm Ethiopian, I'm South Sudanese, whatever. When you look at the rest of the world, they are united in the fact that they hate the racism towards Black people.
Right.
Like everyone's united in
Yeah.
the fact that no matter if you go to Asia, you go to Europe, like South America, wherever, they are united in the fact that they have agreed that us as Black people of African descent are less than them, and they deserve, they have free rights to whatever resources. So everyone is in unison, on one accord on the fact that they're going to be racist towards us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
And I
still
think
niggas.
and I think we have to
Right.
bring up
So
the
we
fact
should
that you, because you being from the West Indies, we have to bring up the fact that some people really do want to disassociate themselves from Africa. So how do we have Pan-Africanism unity when there's so many different types of Black people who don't want to be associated with Africa?
Meanwhile, China is colonizing Africa just like the British, just like the French. So we're over here fighting each other about Blackness, and while we're constantly being subjugated and colonized and oppressed, and like they're racist towards us, they feel like we're less, so they'll come into our communities and neighborhoods and start businesses. They'll come into South Sudan and open restaurants and stuff, and then they'll exclude you and like try to other you within your own country, within your own land. Look at what they did in South Africa. They moved in and they're literally like being racist towards South African people within Africa and saying that they wanted to have their own like sovereign land within South Africa. What do they call? I'll put it.
Apartheid?
Yeah, but it's like the
it's,
people, not the Afrikaans.
Mandarin is now like a third language of South Africa.
Yeah, but it was the Afrikaans people, the white people who are the white South Africans. They came and they're like,
They
okay,
are the Afrikaners.
yeah, they created their own sovereign nation within South Africa, and then had the audacity to be racist towards
the original
anyone,
Black
like people who would
South
work in their
Africans.
resorts. Like they would be racist towards you within Africa. How is that possible? How
But
are we
this
as Black
is-
people
China,
allowing
in
this?
China right now, I mean, and in South Sudan, in the Didinga Hills, China is digging up our gold.
Yeah,
like,
they're colonizing
yeah,
us all over.
They're like taking it and like messing up our rivers, which is
Yeah.
our source of water.
Mhm.
Which is a big issue. But
Change with the properties of
The
what's in
thing
cell
is, though,
phone.
it's as they should. If our leaders are giving
What
them
do you
this
mean?
land,
Well, not as they should.
No, let me finish my point.
land,
Let me
because
finish
that's a
my
very
point, though.
good
Let me
point,
finish my
yeah.
point, because what we're talking about, we want to blame China and what they're doing, but the reason why China is in Africa is because
Corruption.
our leaders are giving them this
Corrupt.
access.
That is
Yep,
true.
they're
Mhm.
selling off. They're selling us out.
selling it.
The
So what-
quickest way to make somebody do something for you is to put them in debt. So if you're telling me like, oh yeah, China, you can come in and build these roads for me, but when China comes and builds a road and give you funds to build a road, they're bringing Chinese workers. So you're not getting workers from your own country.
Yeah,
to
you're
build
not
these
even
roads.
bringing
They're
jobs to the
bringing
country.
Chinese workers to build those roads.
Now you're in debt.
So now
Not to
now the
interrupt
road
you.
is built,
not to
and
interrupt
then,
you.
and then the actual commerce that's being taken on those on those roads are Chinese commerce.
Okay, we'll
Go
take
ahead,
it
Willie.
to Willie and
No,
then
no,
bring
no.
it back to
I'll
I
Janet.
just-
feel
I
like
was
that's
gonna add on
and
what
then
he's
we
saying.
Yeah,
and
go
then
ahead.
we
Yeah.
and then we
It's
get
like
mad
even,
at China
even,
for doing
even
doing all
they
of
bring
those
their
stuff.
own cooks as well.
Yeah.
Like they bring Chinese people to do everything. Like they don't even hire the local people to sweep.
And then they're
bring
racist
their own-
towards
So we
like,
can't be
that's
mad
what-
at China. We need to
Yeah.
be mad at the people who are allowing them this access, because
Yeah.
China didn't just show
the
up. one
leaders.
day.
How can
yeah,
our
the
people fight
leaders.
It comes
by
down
getting
to,
by having dependence. Ghana's president went to France and told the French president that at this point that the way 70% of cocoa plants are being built are being grown in West Africa. Yet 1% of chocolate, which is the biggest ROI, is made in Africa. 90% of it is made in Europe and in America. So Ghana's president went there and said, look, we're making 70% of the chocolate. Instead of shipping it to Europe, we're going to start building our own plants to make
Yeah,
chocolate.
process it ourselves.
So that's how we fight back, is by becoming dependent and saying, no, we're going to build it ourselves.
Okay, let's take
But
it to
what about our
Janet, because I
history? What's
think
gonna
Yeah,
happen?
that's exactly. But we
Wait,
still have a history of
let's
colonialism.
let Janet, because
Yeah.
I think Janet
we have
being
to,
taken
get
advantage of.
away from that, though. This looking back for history and saying
Because
it's
But you do
Patrice-
have to. If you want to
Patrice
fix
Lumumba.
it, you have to get
Yeah,
to the root of the
it's okay.
problem.
we,
It's
we
there
have
already.
this history
It's done
of them.
already.
They're gonna coup us. Like
It's
it doesn't
done.
matter.
Okay, let's-
Anytime you stand up as an African country, what happens?
so we
all of a
You
sudden
just
the
said
CIA,
as a
all of a
country,
sudden
'cause
a different party.
And
the
this is what
reason
comes
why
back.
they've broken up Africa like they have is because we're weaker, broken up
Yeah.
into individual countries.
Mhm.
But I'll let Janet touch on whatever she wants to say and then bring it back to.
Going back to Pan-Africanism, because speaking about China, how do we approach coming into the countries in Africa and addressing that need? Because like we talked about, China going about it by allowing the countries to be in debt and kind of having that
Mhm.
fear-based approach. But we're trying to come into it more so like collectively. And how can we make the countries better around us? So looking at it more so like the misinformation on both ends in working together to be informed so that we can come into it more collectively and actually improve the countries
Target
in
our
Africa.
leaders, because they're the ones who are selling us out. China's like, I'll give you $5 billion, blah blah blah, but these are the stipulations, and they ignore that, and then they accept that money. Now, like, we're indebted to China, and then the corruption and the nepotism, everything, they'll break it up within themselves, split that money that China is giving them, not do anything for the people, like, they don't have welfare, they don't have Section 8, they don't have food stamps in Africa. So just
at the same time, like, corruption, the nepotism, all of those things are like rooted in colonialism. So we still like it's not like we cannot no longer.
It is.
No,
It is
because I completely disagree with the whole Chinese as they should. No, as they should not, and they should never.
There's a thing too. It's saying like as you should. Like if. I mean, it's not even fully as you should. It's like everybody has a mindset of protecting their own and making money for themselves. So yes, you could say, the Africans are slipping up, they're not worried about it. So let's go ahead and make our money and dip out. So it's like you could say as they should, because like if you see a opportunity to make money, go ahead and make your money. But at the same time, it's like there's still a moral compass to that. It's like you still are, you could come in and make your money, but then you still, throwing disgust to the people that's there. You're still not treating their property with respect and dipping out. So it's not as you should at that, because that's bad karma in general.
I think I think it should be fair. It should be balanced. Like, we can blame our leaders because they're opening the door. They're pocketing. They're pocketing a lot of the.
Who's electing these leaders? I think
they're electing themselves.
It's like as a people, we need to do better. Stop electing people just because.
Here's the problem.
Just because they're part of your tribe.
One mic.
Or like. Just like we need to do better as a people. I think education helps, and I think social media helps because we get a bigger picture of other black people, what they're facing in the world. But we need to do better about who we're electing.
Right.
The thing is, I think the borders in Africa, like I said, borders are man-made, and I'm one of the proponents that Africa needs a world war within itself to
What?
We had enough wars.
Wild.
Let me hear that.
Why
so?
What?
Because if you look at how World War I and World War II happened, the reason was because Germany was encroaching on other people's border. So there had to be a reset where everybody will know these are our borders, these are our borders. We don't have that in Africa. Our borders were man-made by Europeans. There's actually, if you go to middle school, there's a book when they show the 5 continents, the 5 countries, America, Germany, British, Europe, Italy, Spain, and like Russia, and they're carving Africa for who will get what country.
Yeah, they united, the European countries united in order to colonize Africa.
So
it's like,
right
the
now,
French
it's like
get this, the British get
we're
this.
still in colonialism when people say, let's blame the whole colonialism on what's happening right now in Africa, is because we're still in colonialism. And what they're doing is they're doing economic. But as a capitalist, when I say as they should, is because capitalism is built on taking from the exploiting the weak.
But that's why people have issues with capitalism.
But
what happens when can I interject on this? Can I interject on this? My point is like every African country that finally decided to get into socialism and improve their country, what happened to them? The U.S., Britain, and France went over there and fucked them. Like that's just what they did, because they don't believe when Africans finally decide to realize that the whole continent is super rich. If we did decide to be socialist,
that's why they're over there. You think they would be over there colonizing us if we had nothing?
Exactly.
We have the most resources in the world.
If we did decide to give the people the value that their land is valuable for, what happens? We don't need Europe. We don't need China. We don't need Russia. We don't need anyone.
Emmanuel,
we didn't ask them to go over there either.
Why have we allowed ourselves to continuously be colonized and subjugated?
Because
we have allowed ourselves to be for sale.
And we didn't allow it.
I don't know. People.
We
did not allow it.
I know, like, capitalism is like people hate on capitalism. But
come on, banker.
No.
Mr. Treasurer over here.
As an economics student, it's not a perfect system. It's a messed up system. But we have to take advantage of it. We cannot be like, we're gonna do what are we gonna do? Communism? Like that doesn't.
No, there's other variation of capitalism. You can do social capitalism where some of the welfare nets, you can utilize that,
can,
like
but-
having go like
but it's
Singapore
it's still
does it
a
big,
different version of
where there's
capitalism.
housing.
We have to take it to our advantage. You know,
but even in America, we don't use actual capitalism, because if we do, then a lot of these companies will be going bankrupt when they fail. But we use
Exactly.
social
Like
capitalism, because
capitalism,
when they lose, we're socialists to them. But when they
still-
gain their profits, we're capitalists.
Yeah, we still
So
have roads,
it's
we
only
still have
us-
hospitals, which in capitalism we shouldn't have a government building roads, but they do. So
America still has people who
we
held
shouldn't
that
have
clean
police.
water.
Like in a pure capitalism,
Flint.
there shouldn't be cops. It should just be like the market taking care of everything. But we still have
Do
the
we trust
government.
them?
It's like
the
a ver-
government-
it's like a
But yeah, but like,
variation.
obviously, like we
Liberalism,
can't have a pure
libertarians.
level of capitalism. But we like capitalism is here to stay. Let's just be honest.
Mhm.
But we have to take advantage of it instead of trying to fight it.
But
Is it
I,
here to stay in Africa?
We'll take
we
it
gotta.
to-
I think.
can't do it in
I
Africa.
think maybe.
Yeah.
We
But
can
like,
choose our own.
Again,
own.
but again, we're
Like
going.
tell me a
we're going more
non-capitalist
into the
country
details.
that-
It's
Okay.
realistic.
Yeah, like,
China.
hold on.
Wait,
I
wait.
agree.
So like,
Yeah,
China
go
does
ahead,
capitalism
Fatima. Yeah.
But they
let-
build the infrastructure.
But look,
let her jump in there.
all I'm saying is we're discussing, is it realistic or unrealistic?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the topics that kept getting brought up is uniting.
Mhm.
How about as like a next step, instead of uniting Africa, we unite the diaspora.
I'm with you.
Right.
Do that
Yeah.
part first,
That
because
has been
build-
yeah.
China comes into Africa united.
Right. Because we can't
We-
go in
correct.
Africa
We
be like,
can't go in
step aside,
individually.
we're going to leave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
yeah.
We're uniting all of no, yeah.
So I think maybe like realistically, if we want to make it realistic, we have to unite here first
Mm.
before we go there. Again,
Mhm.
China goes in united.
Yeah.
All of the Western powers, the U.S., Russia, UK, they go in united,
And I
then
think-
they
yeah.
and then they.
Yeah.
I think one thing we can see from this conversation is that it actually is a need
Mhm.
because we're struggling worldwide. Like we're the bottom of the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah, and ultimately, knowledge, as he mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
knowledge is power. We have the knowledge. We have the understanding. Our parents, I think we have to remember why we even came to America. A lot of
Mhm.
diaspora, we have to remember why we came to America. We understand the systems. We grew up here. We understand the systems, and we need to
Yeah.
like, instead of like kind of thinking about ourselves and like, I'm comfortable, I'm good. Like, do I really want to stress myself out? We really have to bring up that conversation. Not the whole part of like how can we unite Africa? How can we unite the diaspora? Because
How can we
that's
unite
really
ourselves?
truly
I
the
think
step
can I-
one.
can I even
And
challenge
don't bring
that?
it to Janet.
I'm
Would I
gonna
say
I'm
something?
just
Yeah.
add
Yeah,
to
Janet
what
and Emmanuel.
Fatima said, because even going into the economics, I know the economics is important, but if we redirect our focus to the diaspora, what does our economic stance look like coming into Africa? Because like we mentioned, China got millions and billions of dollars going into Africa to be able to
Mhm.
make those changes, even though they aren't for the good for the whole country. But where are we at economically to where
We're actually
in America to
the
then
seventh,
go in?
economically, black people are at a seventh as far as GDP in the
Mhm.
world.
Mm.
7 out of
But-
7.
No, seventh out of like 300 countries.
Emmanuel, did
We're
you
actually
wanna
that
jump in
large
there?
as far as GDP. The only issue is that we don't keep our money in our community because our money gets dispersed
goes to
other
Gucci and
communities.
Prada,
The minute
Louis
we're spending it. So
People
in
who
the
don't
in
want
the
you to
Jewish
buy their
community, the
stuff.
dollar stays there seven
Yeah.
times at a minimum.
I was gonna
In-
say even
in the
a-
Arab
even a
community,
bigger
I
thing.
mean, not in the African community, we out. The minute we
Yeah.
get that money, we're buying Gucci, we're buying Prada.
I was
Yeah.
going to challenge that by saying, like, even with us, we don't even understand the bigger struggle for all of us,
Yeah.
which is
Mm.
the native
That's
struggle.
good.
Mm-hmm.
So for our Aborigines brothers, for
China
all our people,
doesn't understand the local struggle either.
They do,
We just need to
but they
unite.
do.
True,
But they
The
do.
but
diaspora needs to unite.
But I say,
like
I say we have an
Aboriginals?
even bigger diaspora that we don't really talk about, which are
Mm.
those that have been erased by colonialism, just like us.
Mhm.
So the Native Americans, the South Americans that have been erased, the indigenous
No,
people
this
in
is about
Australia.
Pan-Africanism.
So I know it's about Pan-Africanism, but the bigger
I
thing
just-
is like we need the Pan-Africanism to grow so much strength that we can also bring up our
Right.
brothers who are literally
Yeah.
going to be gone.
But one last thing I want to say, I don't know where the quote is from. I will find it and insert it, but it says that like Africa is a balloon and it has to be blown up from outside of the continent. Like they can't
Mhm.
do it from within the balloon. Like we have to do it because we have the knowledge and resources. We've been out here in the diaspora for a few decades. We've been able to go to school, get educated in these systems, live in these communities, and see how America is built and structured. So, yeah, they're back home and they have their own system going on. Like, we have to respect the fact that we can't come and be like, this is what y'all need to do, move to the side,
Right.
we're taking over. But we do have a lot of resources. We can bring people from Australia, people from the US, Canada, wherever, like the West Indies, everywhere, the UK, and be able to come and be like, listen, I'm an engineer, I'm this is what I got, like I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, we're all coming back and we're going to invest here. And we're not going to allow these corrupt leaders to work against us. And for once, we're going to build something for ourselves, because we're disrespected worldwide. We are the bottom of the totem pole. Everyone comes to us to exploit us, and they look at us as like in Arabic, like, because, you know, I'm from South Sudan, Arab country. They call us abid, or like slaves. So they look at us as like something to be exploited. Our land is up for sale, like whoever's the high. And they know how to get us too, divide and conquer. So they'll come to our leaders and they'll say, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. They'll create wars. Like they create a lot of division to where we are now. So just to bring it to the panel to round it out, final discussions, is Pan-Africanism realistic? Is it a need?
Yes.
And I'll go to Chris.
Yes, it is. It's definitely realistic. It just comes down to everybody really being wanting to do it. You all are right in terms of you guys we have to, well, Fatima, you're definitely right saying we have to start here for sure to bring it out, because we all have skills that we learned from Canada and UK. And I think we all have the common saying of like, yo, they do treat us all the same, because any box they're going to check for us is always
You're
that
gonna
you're
be
a
black.
black-skinned person. So, I mean, I look at, you know, you talk about you have all these professionals. Every single person that goes out here is usually one of a few. You know, I'm in meetings. Yeah, as an engineer, I'm the only black person there, and they look at me when I'm solving their problems. They go, oh gosh, he's smart. He's solving our problems. You could be go to a bank, and you might be the only one in your room talking about money. Oh, he knows money more than us. You out here making more people laugh. Oh, black people are more funny than us. We all have different ways. You know, oh wow, they do makeup or beauty or whatever better than us. It's like we all running everything. Our culture, our slang, our vibe is always among the everybody seeking out. And it comes down to, yes, divide them up and then, you know, make them, you know, beg for the pennies to make them feel like there's something out here.
And try to squeeze into those spaces where we'll never be accepted, when we can create our own.
It's just like, you know, it comes down to, you know, finances. Like, you know, they don't want, you know, everybody to jump in, you know, when they want everybody to kind of jump in when everything is hot, because the money is less few there. But when no one's talking about it, that's when people are actually really buying stuff up. And if it is hot, they'll talk about it and make it look bad so no one wants it anymore. But they see the value in us. So yeah, they talk bad on us all the time. And then when we're all down, then they start buying into us, get their stock in us, and they try to beef it back up for the time period. And they get it down again. It's all up and down. So yes, it's possible. We just got to come together, and it comes down to education of understanding, like, yo, how do we all get here? I mean, I touched on, you know, China, you know, coming as a united front. It's a united front, but you also forget they're playing a game like everybody else playing a game. We gotta play our game. China ain't doing nothing. It's not no land of the free. All that stuff is framed what they put out to the people. They can't watch what they really want to watch, and there's a select few people making the changes. It's not, you can't even say like they're doing everything smart. They're just as corrupt. You know, they do capitalism as well, but they do it within their own little pocket. Like we, you know, why every time like you have a big thing, they want to shut down, you know, the Black People marches, stuff like that. We move a lot of economy. Say we're number 7. I didn't know that, but that makes sense. We buy everything.
We have a lot of purchasing power, but we purchase their stuff.
We make the money for them, because we make everything here, and either they make us work for it, or we can make it. They take it from us and make us work to get it back. So like we have all the power. It's just us coming down and talking to each other and say, hey yo, support each other. You know,
period. And like the NFL, the NBA, they own the teams. Like, yeah, you're making $200 million, but like they're owning the team. They're owning everything that we do. Like the hip hop industry, they are the owners of the labels. Like they promote what they want.
Only the artists are black.
Owning
everybody behind
owning
them.
the culture ourselves.
And honestly, I feel like we all really just scared. It's like y'all comfortable in yourself and y'all scared, because y'all feared of the white person or the Jewish person or the Chinese person looking down at you, because they all already have, like you said, they all are on the comments, on the understanding of like black people are less. So if you try to move outside of black people, it's all hating within ourselves. So it's like, we lift up ourselves, and we support ourselves, and I think we'd be good. It's just we could make our own. We make our jobs. We make our style. So like, we shouldn't be feared of like the paycheck that comes from a white person.
We are the culture, but we don't own the culture.
We are the culture.
Go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off you said, that's really great. Just understanding and recognizing our power within the diaspora, and recognizing what we can do here, pouring into our gifts, our talents, our careers, and then being willing to be informed to learn about what's going on in Africa, to take it back home and change the narrative too. So I do think it's realistic. I think that it might take a long time, sadly, because we're looking big picture here, but I think we have to start small. And once we work on what we can do here and grow here, then we can go ahead and take it over to Africa and see this, and then really see it through. Yeah.
So we're running out of time. So I think we have to. We might have to reconvene if listen, audience, if you guys like this topic and you're like, you guys didn't get deep enough, request a part 2 and we could do a part 2. But right now we're gonna go ahead and close out this topic and let everybody
plug themselves.
Plug your social media, if you want to do what you're doing, and let us know where everyone can find you.
Yeah, Chris, we'll start with you.
Beautiful Cerebral, BEU, Beautiful Cerebral, Black Enterprise United, or at Long Came HK. You can find me.
Yeah, and my at on everywhere is Janet Akorkin, and last name is spelled Akorikin. Follow my YouTube channel. Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram, Arnabi, ARNABI20. I think that's the Instagram.
We got you. We're gonna get you right.
Yeah. But follow my. I don't really do anything on Instagram. Follow my two brothers. They do the most. Bunduki, BUNDUKI_ musician. He does a lot of ROIs, a lot of stuff on Google, etc., marketing. And then my other brother, Dat Boy Ladu, he also does the same thing. DATBOILADO.
All right, I like a private life, so no thank you.
Period. Really fast.
With a Y, Christine.
Sorry, I misspelled.
Oh yeah, she misspelled it the first time we did the episode.
I spelled it right the second time.
Yeah, you
Just
did it.
really fast _ That's it. That's my Instagram. I don't do anything besides that.
I'm Emmanuel Ngoy, aka Mr. Get Up in the Middle of the Podcast to Go Pee.
Fact.
Is that what you
Anyways, I'm a comedian. You can follow me at Emmanuel Ngoy _comedy, and then everything else is just Emmanuel, especially on TikTok. I'm trying to get to 100,000 followers. I'm trying to get paid more.
All right. Well, thank you so much, panel. We really appreciate you guys. I think the audience will have something to contribute, so make sure you leave a comment. I also want to address the beautiful books that have been on the table. The Woman Caught on the Crossfire, my mom's book about her experience during the civil war in Sudan and everything that the woman went through. So please go ahead and purchase www.womancaughtinthecrossfire.com. Neil actually mentioned that that's actually the color of the Pan-Africanist flag, like that color scheme.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, perfect timing.
Is there a hardcover version?
There is a hardcover
right here.
version. Yeah.
Yes, and they are coming out with the audiobook version as well.
Yes. So make sure you get that. But thank you so much for
This was good.
Yeah, great
This was
conversation. It's a heavy. It's like there's a lot of layers to this conversation. So I feel like we kind of went, in different.
We touched the surface because obviously it hasn't happened yet. So clearly it's complex.
Yeah, we navigated different areas. So I think the conversation was real because it is complicated. It's not easy. So yeah, I love everything about this. And ladies of Sosa, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everything, and leave a comment. What else? Am I missing something?
Make sure you leave us a comment on the actual podcast if you listen through Spotify or Apple. Those are just as important. We do get a lot of feedback on our socials and YouTube, but we do want to run up the actual podcast on Spotify
Apple and Spotify. Yeah, leave a review, 5 stars, all of that. Leave a comment, and we might shout you out in the next episode.
Comment, like, subscribe if you have any topic suggestions, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Mr. Controversy.